Hey, everybody. Welcome to Commercial Construction Elevate the Industry podcast series. I'm your host, Dave Presida. I'm happy to be here, and I want to thank you for joining us today. Today's episode is about project management, and it fits into why we're doing this in general. We want to help everyone from owner to intern understand the business better so you can make the best decisions about your future in the industry. Now, I've been doing this for a long time, and I will say this: project management is not my strength. I'm okay, but I'm not really good at it. What our guest today is, and he's much more than a project manager. I want to say that he's an executive for sure, but his strength is in project management, and you'll hear his story and how he got to be where he is today. So this is relevant to any scope of work, any trade in this industry, because we're not going to talk about his specific technical knowledge, but we're going to talk about things that make him good at project management. I met our guest several years ago in Texas at a prefab bathroom pod conference of all things. But I recognized right off the bat that he was special. He was very intuitive. Right? He's intellectual. He's into the details, which I think you're going to hear from him. And I knew right away that he was a good guy. Eventually, we worked together. I think the last time I saw him was on the West Coast doing Camp Pendleton Replacement Hospital. But I'm so excited to have with us today the Vice President of U.S. Operations at Nova Drywall Systems, Inc., based in Southern California, Steve Regalbuto. Steve, thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here, Dave. Great to see you again. Thanks for having me.
It's been a while, man. So let's just dive right in. Before we get to your history, tell us what you're doing today, what your role is, and then we'll backtrack from there.
Yeah, Nova Drywall, full service walls and ceilings contractor in Southern California. My role encompasses, just wearing many hats. Responsible for all aspects of the operation, profitability, growth, and that includes sales, estimating, project management, field operations, and everything that happens in between, really.
So you wear all kinds of hats. Today we're going to focus on your project management experience for our audience. And now you're originally from Canada, Steve. What part?
From Ottawa. Born and raised in Ottawa, Canada, just west of Ottawa. In a town called Nepean, and from there out to West Carleton Township. So
there is construction in Canada. I assume that's where you got started in the construction business. How did that go?
Yeah, I followed my father in the business. He was a construction management professional that worked for a few GCs over the years, and then followed my brother, who started into the trade as a journeyman, as a union carpenter. He jumped out into that, and I followed him in. Just a calling. He made it look pretty cool. It was good money at the time. I followed him into it and just never looked back.
So when did you come to the States, Steve, and what brought you here?
Yeah, it was 1998. I ended up with a job offer from a company called the Raymond Group here in Southern California, and met them, had a meeting, accepted a job with them, and it was kind of a boyhood dream, actually, to get out of the frigid cold. And I dreamt as a youngster about palm trees and the beach and all this stuff, and I just eventually found an opportunity to make it so.
So you were with Raymond, and what title did you serve, or role did you play there?
I started as a project manager, really just right into the trenches. I walked in, and they were in a growth spurt and much in need of a project manager. So I came in, and they just kind of started loading me up with projects, of all kinds, and I just jumped right into that and never looked back. And as I worked through the years at Raymond, I kind of came up through the ranks and worked on various aspects of the business, kind of in most of the roles.
So you started out in the field
Yes.
And you became a project manager. And Raymond is a very, very well-respected company. And, Steve, you had much to do with that, and you and several other good people. And as a matter of fact, that's where I met you. You were working with Raymond when we were down in Texas. But beyond that, there's a lot of good people that are in the field and understand how to put things together.
Yeah.
But project management entails a whole lot of reporting, of managing, of logistics and everything else. Yeah. How did you bridge the gap technologically, right, to go from work boots to work shoes, from a screw gun to a computer?
Yeah, good question. I'd say it was from, primarily from the school of sink or swim. Over the years, I will say that, Raymond's a great training institution in its own right. But really, I think we all used to look back even there and chuckle about, you get in and you learn to do what you need to do. So for instance, just learning Excel, learning QuickBid and on-screen takeoff, PowerPoint, you name it. I ultimately took training years after I was good at it. But I learned everything on the fly. Just it was go time to step up. Having an advantage of the field experience was a big leg up in terms of being a project manager, because I was the type of field leader, I think, that was trying to come in and out of, bridging the office and the field. So I just kind of switched roles on the project management side and tried to use some of the same, methodology, same spirit to keep things moving.
I want everybody in who's listening and watching to understand it. That Steve is special because he started in the field and wanted to do more, and he utilized that information. But he had a lot of growth. I mean, you had to grow a lot. Like you said sink or swim mentality. Yeah. Interesting. So for anybody out there that thinks you have to have a computer background, or vice versa, I was the opposite. But that's why Steve's a really strong PM. We're going to get into that. But I love the fact that you just did what it took. And our message is always that. If if the why is strong enough, you overcome the challenges that it's going to take to get there. You're certainly an example of that. As a project manager, during your project management days, what were your biggest priorities? Like if you were to describe what the priorities are for a project manager, let's say you hire somebody today, what do you want them to do?
I want them to support their project team. And that's anything from, their foreman, their project engineer, back up into the office to senior management, is really to be, you need to be the quarterback. And it is, to me, it is such an important role in the whole construction, food chain. The field, at the end of the day, if you're working particularly, I can speak to the general contractor side to an extent, David, but from a subcontractor perspective, when there's boots in the dirt and you have anywhere from 10 to, you might have over 100 people on the job, you got to keep moving. Union salaries, costing the company over $75 to $100 an hour. We've got to keep things moving. So you got to remember as a project manager that you're a construction company first and foremost. And you've got to get the people what they need, and you've got to get it done in a timely fashion, and you've got to remove all the barriers and boundaries to success on the job site. So it starts with a vision. What do you want to achieve on the job? And from there, it just into plans, tactically each day, putting steps together. And for above all else, follow process. The company's got a process for a reason. You may have an idea that you could improve on a process, which is good. We always want people to bring that to the table. But if you go from A to D and you forget steps B and C, Dave, I can't tell you how many times I've been dragged into an issue of my own making in the past, and later on in my career to maybe by somebody else's making, and then kind of let's track what's gone on and transpired here. by and large, the issues are, we skipped step B and C, that caused this, and there's a failure of sorts, and we have to go back and remedy it, just follow process.
We're going to get into the process, but you used a word that I think is critical. Because I'll ask a lot of people, like, what's the role of a project manager? Well, they manage the project, but you never use the word manage. You use the word support. You started out by saying, I want to support the entire staff, right? From foreman up through the executives to help people get done. That's what a good project manager does. They protect the investment, protect the company.
Absolutely.
And you do that by not just managing pieces and parts, but understanding people and the things that make a project manager special. But you said it in the word is support. Now, if you had to list 3 or 4 or 5 steps in the process that you think are important as a project manager, company gets the job. Now you're in a different situation. You might get the job now, but when you were just in project management, what happens? Is there a handoff? What happens after that?
Yeah, absolutely. There has to be a handoff. I'd say if I was, project managing a job today, first thing I would do is probably pray that the project was an early procurement and that there's adequate time for pre-construction. Planning is it, and it's everything. And I mean, in my career, I've been really fortunate to have projects that we had a ton of time to just dissect, put a fantastic pre-construction plan together. Everything from, really in-depth modeling to, turning that into excellent 2D shop drawings and all kinds of, budgeting and developing a game plan and stocking plans and so forth. On the other hand, I've been involved in projects where it was a last minute award, and people on the job the next day, you're scrambling to get insurance. And, it's a really problematic sort of issue. So hope that, answers at least the first part of your question, that just, really the planning aspect of it is about everything. Aside from that, I'd say that, the budgeting process, if the company has a good estimating database and a good estimating to project manager handoff, that's a huge leg up to the project management and that team coming into it to know, like the word you used was protecting, and you got to protect the margin on the job. It's really hard to do that if you don't know what the game plan is. What's been promised. We want the estimators to tell us where the dead bodies are hidden before we get into that thing, so we can stand up and have a conversation with the client, good or bad, an honest conversation about maybe where we have some challenges, where we might need some help. I'm a firm believer in sharing that with your client. It could come back to bite you, but sharing with your client that you've got some challenges here and there and you may need some help, it never hurts to ask. But having a good budget set up, spending the adequate time to go through in a detail and know between the plans, the estimate, and what you're putting together as a budget that's going to be ultimately fed into the job cost system. You've got to believe in it. You've got to know where your challenges are, and you've got to be able to convey to the team the same. I've always been in favor of being very upfront with the field team about, where we have challenges. And even if we've got a job that's, hey, this is a great job, and finally got a job with some margin, if you have the right team member, the right team leader on the job, you can share with them, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I think it's important just to all know the job going in. What do we have here?
Well, you said, you're transparent. You got to build trust, whether it's with the client or your staff, because if you BS them once, it's over, right? Mm-hmm. You brought out something that I really didn't think of, the value of time built in for pre-construction. So if you're in business development, you got to look at jobs differently, and you got to price them differently. If you have a design assist job where you're in early and you've got time, my goodness, that's valuable. And you can shape it the way you want versus bidding a job. Maybe it's a good client, but it's, you got no time. A huge difference there. So thank you for that. The process is critical and everything. And again, whether you're a mechanical contractor, it's all the same. You've got to understand it. Your team has to understand it. This is a general question, but what are you, as a project manager, what are the challenges that you face every day? You get up in the morning and you start thinking, what do you think about?
I can go on and on. I'd say, in all honesty, the thing that would be on my mind on the way to the work, on the way to the project would be the client, people. Everything is easy until people get involved, right? I mean, that's in every business, that you might have a client that is just, great. They're on the ball, they're collaborative, they're approachable and all the rest. And then you might have a client that, you get a bellyache thinking about going in and talking to them. And, as I matured in the business, my reservations to have any hard conversation diminished, but I would say that was a large part of what was on my mind is the people. You got to get in as a quarterback. You might have a foreman in a particular mood or disposition generally. The clients, the rest of the people, you've got to bring a team spirit and leadership spirit to the table. So I think there's I'll personalize it, but in my own personal case, preparing myself to be my best to set the tone. I always took that seriously, and I tried to bring a good attitude. Attitude is everything. There's a great superintendent I worked with years ago, a guy named Hector Zerrero, used to preach attitude, and he's absolutely so right about that. Yeah.
Steve, I asked you what the challenges are, and you talked about two different things. One is the client, and one is a personal thing, right? How you project your own feelings, but each is about people. And the hardest thing in business is dealing with people.
Right.
You see managers who manage because they have power. You see leaders who lead because they understand the hearts of the people they're dealing with. And the better you understand that, the better you're going to be. I don't care what you do, right? But that is interesting. Now, another general question. How has the industry changed? Not where it's going. We'll talk about that later. How has the industry changed since you got here to the United States in '98?
There's a number of things that I've seen that have kind of creeped up and really changed. I think the team composition has changed. I think by and large, from what I can see in the subcontracting community and the general contracting community, general contractors led the change to some degree with putting together more complete and robust management teams. Back in the day, there'd be a project manager and a superintendent on a massive job. Now you go to those larger projects and you see a trailer complex with, various tiers of project executive to project management and field staff. And as subcontractors, we're facing, just the inevitability of dealing with that. They started to improve the management, I think, and leadership just by putting in the right resources into the job. We used to run a lot leaner. I think nowadays projects have sped up a little bit. And even with technology, as much as that's really changed and crept into our business, the accuracy of the work on the paperwork side and the field side is greater. The speed, they want more, faster, better. There's more compliance than you've ever seen. Seems like so many projects we have now, there's more forms to fill out about being compliant with this and that. So the business certainly hasn't gotten any easier. But I think the overall approach to managing it with a larger project with maybe a couple of PMs, a couple of project engineers, and a little bit more field staffing, I think that's the biggest trend that I see.
So we're going to have a little fun here. Okay. We call this rapid fire. Now, Steve, I'm going to name something, right? And in a word, 2, 3, or 4 max, give me your response as a project manager, right? What's the first thing that pops into your head? Okay, you ready?
Sure.
The first one, change orders.
Hassle.
Back charges.
Never.
Schedule.
Most critical tool on the project.
QC.
In all aspects of what we do.
Production.
Profit.
Project management software.
Godsend.
Schedule compression.
Time to talk.
That is so good. I can't tell you how good that is, because I know, man, believe me. So before we go to break, I just want to say one thing. You talked before about the changes in the industry, and you mentioned the schedule for sure. You mentioned how companies are really gearing up and manning up, if you will, which makes it difficult if you're overmatched and you have a difficult client or a difficult job.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree with you more. Technology for sure has changed and has enhanced, I think, the way we do business. The way I see it is that the building of the job hasn't changed that much, except there are better means and methods. But building is building. But the business of the business has changed dramatically.
Yes,
and just think about safety,
right?
Yeah. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk to Steve about his personal history, his history with some really, really good companies around the country on the East and the West Coast, and some other things you'll be interested in. So we'll see you in a quick minute.
Hi, I'm Patrick Ripple, founding partner of ISA Architectural. I've known that chap right there for well over 20 years.
And what a 20 years it's been. I'm Larry Windsor, partner, vice president of construction services. Our third partner, Mike Morehouse, can't be with us today.
We are the Mid-Atlantic's premier sales force for architectural building products and engineered architectural solutions. For over 15 years, we have been providing comprehensive design solutions to architects and designers all across this region, and high-quality economic product solutions to contractors and subcontractors too.
We bring products and people together. We specialize in the building envelope, everything from the weather barrier all the way out to different types of cladding. We fully understand the rain screen principle, and we have an interior portfolio specializing in wood and metal walls and ceilings.
If you're a developer, part of a design team, architect, or interiors, or if you're a contractor, let us help you.
Visit www.isaarchitectural.com and see how we can bring value to your project.
Welcome back, everybody, to Commercial Construction Elevate the Industry with our guest today, Steve Regalbuto. Steve, you've been with some really, really rock solid companies. I know two in particular, Raymond and Western Partitions. Why don't you talk a little bit about your employment there, and really what kind of, what did you take from each one?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I can say, looking back, I think I mentioned before, it was a great learning experience working with the caliber of people at Raymond when I first came there from Ottawa. It was an eye-opener to me, kind of being tossed into this bullpen with some incredibly talented people. I hadn't seen that caliber of professionals before, and I quickly realized that had some catching up to do, and needed to raise my game up to play in that arena. So, but I was really embraced by the folks there when I came. I was the different guy that spoke with a funny Canadian accent, and but they were very accommodating to me and very helpful to me just in integrating. And people helped me just find the right place to settle in, help me look for a home, help me just integrate into the way. By and large, the walls and ceilings industry was the same in Southern California with a few nuances, but as I had the opportunity to grow, I was really able to learn a lot of stuff from the various people I worked around. I think my way of learning is just watching, listening. As far as a personality, I think I'm pretty steady and good work ethic, so it just kept plugging away. And I worked with a guy, Tom, who was the CFO over there. And I probably learned more about financial management of subcontractor than I ever would in my life with Tom. He's just a brilliant guy. I learned a lot about contracts from Travis, who's an attorney, and operations with Jeff, who kind of took me under his wing when I first got there. So it was really just a wonderful opportunity to see so many types of projects, such an array of clients, and just how other people were doing things. I was able to sit back, astonished sometimes at watching some really senior PMs tackle projects and just listening in on these team meetings and stuff. So that was a really great experience for me to just slowly learn, elevate. It's funny that I had some good experiences in these FMI, a couple different FMI peer groups. And one thing that I found just through the peer group, I guess, and through some other experiences, that it was astonishing that a lot of contractors didn't really pay too much attention to the contract, and there's a lot of parts that you just got to know. And I think knowing the contract and being a little bit savvy in terms of not knowing every habeas and corpus, but having a pretty good feel for what to look for and so on. Learned a lot of that, and those were general just kind of highlights.
I gotta say, Steve, that there's one common denominator in all the companies you've been with, right? Mm-hmm. And that's you. Mm-hmm. So Raymond saw something in you, and think about this from our listeners, somebody young and in the business, right? When you went to Raymond, they hired you because they saw something in you. They trained you, not because they thought you were average, because they thought they were going to get a gem, and they were right. So what if you can think back without being, be honest, what did they see in Steve Regalbuto when he first got there and as the years went by?
That's a tough question, because if I look back at myself, back at that time, I probably look back critically in terms of what a rookie, But I think it was probably attitude, and just sort of a business philosophy approach. I think the cultural fit was good about how we treat people, talk to people. To some degree, you have to be, without sounding gushy about it, but you have to be a bit of an ambassador to the company, for the company as well. When you go out, you're the face of the company. I think they're looking for people that can go out and make a good impression for the company on their behalf and stuff like that. So I always try to keep that in mind. I made mistakes, of course, but by and large, tried to, bring a lot of integrity to the table when I was dealing with clients. Yes, telling the truth often can put you with the wrong GC or in the wrong vulnerability. it can cost you here and there, but in the long run, it doesn't. I think it pays to, take the high road, do what's right, and you can never go wrong doing that.
So you have had a good run with some really good companies, but I think you found a real home with your current employer, which is Nova Drywall Systems, Inc. Tell us about that.
Sure. So Nova Drywall Systems, Inc. is a subsidiary actually of Nova Drywall Limited, part of the Nova group of companies owned by Daniel Bosa. I had a chance to meet Daniel Bosa about just around 3 years ago or so, and we immediately just gelled. I think as Daniel explained the vision for his company in terms of culturally, what he was looking to do, what he was looking to build and kind of sustainably in the US, his philosophy about the way he treats people seems like something that's come down from his father. And it was just one of those that meetings that I felt like, okay, I know what I want to do. And Daniel and I both felt the same way. So, we jumped on here, and we are in the process of just getting after it. And what can be done over the long haul for a company is being done. This marketplace down here is highly competitive with a lot of really fantastic other subcontractors in the pool. So certainly nothing would be, I'd feel foolish about being declarative about, hey, industry leadership and we're the best. And we've got a great company here, and we're just getting after it and slowly but surely building our own, bringing that Nova brand from, it's a premier top company up in Vancouver, Canada, one of the largest in Canada. And we're just slowly trying to build that down here in the same fashion. So it's just an extension of the Nova headquarters. And I think that's exactly what we're doing, just day after day.
Well, it doesn't happen overnight, and it starts and ends with people. So I commend your owner for hitting on you, because you're the right guy.
Thanks, Dave.
So what advice, Steve, would you give to an owner when they're looking for a project manager? If you were sitting in a room and you were interviewing, what kind of, you said it already, maybe it would be redundant, but some of the things about integrity and trust and emotional intelligence and things like that. How would you guide an owner when he's hiring a key project manager?
That's a great question, Dave. Not really prepared for that. I will say, I think probably, you've got to be able to detect some passion for the business. And I think that is really, really important. I have interviewed people that, oddly enough, talking about the various parts of the business, they're like, yeah, I'll project manage. I don't mind that. And, you just wonder what kind of an impression that would make. I think, to me, the person that just really loves the construction business, wants to get in there, wants more, wants to be challenged. You can't go wrong with that. Again, that's back to attitude. You get the right person. We've hired people over the years that had construction backgrounds, and we hired some people, Dave, that came right out of business school. No construction. They didn't know anything about particularly a specialty trade, and they just so excelled because they had good, learning skills, good baseline of education, but then just the attitude that they wanted to be in the business. And they're great communicators and just passionate. And, now some of the guys I've met, younger guys that I even helped mentor a bit, have gone pretty far, and it's just a great thing to see. So number one, I think passion, and above all else.
Well, that's great, because that's consistent with the kind of message that we provide to our audience is that be special, but it starts with a passion, right? It starts with why. Because there's nothing, Steve, that you've learned, right? It's not rocket science, right? But means and methods are important. The details and that comes with experience. But you can teach that. You can learn that. So if you're listening and you're an owner, or if you're a young person wanting to do more, if you have a passion for it, that's where it's all going to start. And I love that answer. What would you recommend, Steve, to somebody that's listening who's 24, 25, 26, they're with a young company, and they want to be a project manager? Is there any advice you would give them, or would you recommend they stay with one company? I mean, you had the benefit, for whatever reason, of being with some really good companies made up of really good people.
Yeah.
So how would you advise if it was your son's buddy, hey, I'm with a construction company, but I'm thinking about becoming a project manager?
Yeah, I mean, again, if you follow what is really inside, if you're thinking of doing something else, you want to be a insurance guy or something, and project management sounds like it pays well, don't do it. If you're truly passionate about the construction business and want to get into it, make sure that you do your homework and find out, who are the really top companies. A lot of the people in this business come in via relationships. It'll be someone that knows somebody. There's a gentleman I hired at Western Partitions. His name is Sam Jones, and he's just an outstanding professional. I used to host these big Christmas parties, and my grown children, would also invite their friends. So I'd have business people that I knew and friends around. And one year, there was a very, intelligent looking young man in the kitchen. I was talking with him, and he said, I said, where are you from? You from around here? He said, no, I'm from Portland, Oregon. I'm like, no kidding. I'm working up there with Western Partitions. And what do you do? Well, he had done a couple of tours, I think, in the Marines, and he was just finishing up his business degree. And I said, hey, call me if ever you're looking to make a move. And sure enough, he did. We hired him, and he's an outstanding person. He spent 7 years there, and now he just left them to the next springboard in his career was actually to become an insurance broker. But he excelled at what he did. He was so good at it that he actually ended up kind of going into the business development part of it, because he just was a natural at that, and was evolving rapidly. And then this was his next, I think this is a big career jump for him. And but follow your passion, and often, do your homework. And if you get a connection with someone, you get a supervisor at the company that you feel like you can connect with, and you're going to get that sort of advocacy from and mentorship from, just hang on to that, because that's rare. It really is important.
Steve, that's phenomenal advice, and I hope lots of people hear it and heed it. Now we're going to take another short break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about technology and how you as a project manager can become better by understanding it and using it. See you in a minute. Hey, everybody. If you're looking for a strategic business partner who does subcontracting work on the interiors, let me tell you about the CFP Group. They are a minority business enterprise and have been in business for over 20 years. If you're interested, you can contact them by email at cfpgroup1@gmail.com, or call them directly at 410-977-8568. That's 410-977-8568. Take it from me. I've done business with them, and I know they can get the job done. Welcome back, everybody, to Commercial Construction, Elevate the Industry. We're here with my old friend, Steve Regalbuto. Steve, in construction, I've always thought we were behind the curve with technology, and I think I'm right. Another, common thought was that all the higher end technology started on the West Coast and made its way east. How do you see technology as one of the big changers in the commercial construction industry?
I mean, it is, suffice to say, Dave, that, it's changed, as they say, the only constant is change. And since I've been in the business, technology every year has just infused deeper and deeper into our business and further down into the field. Technology in the field at one point was the Nextel phones, when I first really started project managing. And nowadays, it's in all aspects of what we do. And you would be virtually crippled if you didn't have a pretty good sort of array of technology tools in your company to work with. And it's essentially demanded if you're going to be in any kind of major construction. Drywall contractors have been known to be knuckle draggers at times in the industry in terms of reputationally. There's really a lot that you've got to get in and do now just to be, the bar's pretty high. So just to be in the game. But, it starts off with, you've got to have, there has always been accounting software. And, for as long as I've been, in the business, there's been accounting software that did payroll and, AR, AP and stuff like that. But then there was also, the integration of, project management software, which, when I first started in project management, it was just really a kind of a Microsoft suite of Excel sheets and Word docs that you had in folders that, that was your go-to sort of PM suite that you did everything and kind of managed it. Now everything is much more integrated. Between the likes of companies like Plexus, who've done, I think, a great job in the industry of software, and even Viewpoint has come a long way in terms of, we use them here with our Spectrum software and with their project management suites. It integrates the project management, the field, the accounting and finance side to a degree that you could take as far as you want, depending on your approach. But essentially, you're able to upload, payroll time entry just from an iPad or a phone directly into the field, and that's come a long way, and it's really cuts out a lot of time. Payroll gets the stuff exactly out as it's needed. There's no other additional steps. Project management can do real-time job costing, budget updates. So the financial management part of it is just so much more. It's accurate and it's timely, and it just eliminates a tremendous amount of steps. So I think just from that sort of management perspective, the integration of project management software, even with drawing management. I remember back in the days, keeping up that set of drawings and slip sheeting new sets in and trying to keep up with all the RFIs and bulletins and redlining those drawings. Now it's all done with PlanGrid or Procore or ones like that. Everything's there. You just feed it. Your field has real-time information.
Everybody's working off the same sheet of music.
Yeah. And then, additionally, just the advent of, taking BIM and 3D modeling to the next level, where they have integrated, layout and laser software and implementation of layout tools that can now take your model. You can set layout points. You get on the project, get the equipment oriented to the project, and away you go. And you're cutting layout time down.
Steve, I want to stop you there because I want to hit that harder. If you are, I'm going to say young, maybe I shouldn't say that, but I got to tell you, if the industry is dominated by a bunch of old guys, you're probably right. But you want to know how to make an impact? Technology. Because I consult with a company now here. They use Plexus, right? They're not sure about. They're trying to get the robots to do the layout. They're not sure how to program the iPads in the field. And I'm telling you, if you have a passion to grow in a business, you could choose one that's already well ahead, or you can choose one that needs to move further, faster. Right. And that's this business. Yeah. And I think, Steve, over the years, the construction business didn't really attract what I would call, maybe what younger people are coming out of college with now, the way their lifestyles are and everything else. But I'm telling you, if you have, we can teach you everything else. Yeah. But man, if you come in and embrace technology, you're going to pave your own way for sure.
Yeah.
Steve, as BIM, building information modeling, has that evolved to something where you can use it in the field, or is it more of just a deliverable at the end of the job to the owner?
Oh, absolutely. I've heard people, it's very disappointing to me to hear people say, particularly I'll say old school mentality where, we tried modeling this job and it didn't work and, it seemed like a waste of time. Well, there are still people saying that, and it's astonishing to me because I've seen it done right. And when you model, I'll talk about our scope of work, but it could be electrical, it could be mechanical. When you model and you have the opportunity to get up and see things in that perspective before any structural steel has even arisen on a project, and you can coordinate all those things, it's really kind of a miracle, But what happens is oftentimes the big room where all the brain trust goes, including superintendents and great BIM managers and detailers and drafters. A lot of great work is done there, but where it fails often is when it goes from that, conflict resolved model to the field, because there is a place for setting up, special viewpoints within Navisworks so you can illustrate the tough areas for the foreman. So just from a communication and illustration tool, there is nothing like it. Take that further. If you have an excellently produced model, if you don't turn it into some form of 2D drawing or at least a really well done viewpoint, and a perfect example would be like a high mechanical traffic area in an OSHPOD hospital or laboratory, where every component up there gets modeled. What happens when the field folks show up to build it? What are they building off of? They're not going to build off a model. Now, in the future, we think they might, with the advent of these new glasses and being able to produce layout drawings that are viewable through glasses and layout lines that are transposed. I mean, that type of technology, the virtual world is getting further and further. It's not that far-fetched. But in today's most real aspect, taking 2D drawings and producing them for your field layout people and stuff to be able to get the conflict resolved models onto a layout component on the floor, that's huge. So it's completely usable. It's saved time and money. It's added value to the industry. The days of just ship a whole bunch of material to the job site, get to the RFIs when you look up and just try to, hack away at stuff. Anybody can build a building, Dave, as you know. Given enough time and money, you could take 20 different contractors and they can all probably build it. But it's such a highly competitive marketplace now with a ton of risk for the owners, developers, and the GCs and ourselves. The only way to mitigate that is to be really good at it and have your act together. Technology is a huge help to all of us to get there.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it's great for the industry. It's great to bring new people into the industry. We certainly need it. Tell us about your family, Steve, and how you balance work and personal life, because that sometimes can get away from us.
Yeah. No, thanks. Yeah. Well, I think, I'm better at it now than I used to be. I'll say that. I have a great wife, and I have 3 grown children that are just amazing. Coincidentally, my son is a field foreman at Raymond, and
Wow.
he followed me into the business, and he's done really well for himself, and he just loves it. So I would say, work-life balance is something people talk about. They coin a phrase, if you will. I've lived it because I've done time on the road and been away from home. I'd say, you really never take your eye off the ball. Don't let, you've got to work hard. Work ethic is important. Putting the time in is important. I think that if there's any lessons learned, I think it's that, you've always got to keep what's most important in the forefront of your mind. And work is very critical, but so is family. And I think if you've got that, years ago, I took martial arts for a while, and there was a master that he just talked about this triangle system, and it was about family and work, and then that other thing might be whatever it is. Could be golf, could be some kind of sports, it could be something. But if you had a good balance of all those, then you're kind of in a harmonious type setting, and life is good. I firmly believe in that. I haven't always been. I mean, things can get away with you. You can get your balance out of whack, but those are things you learn from.
Well said. Let's talk about project history real quick. And what is the coolest project that you've ever been associated with? Is there one?
That's a tough question. I'd say the cool factor has to be awarded to the Little Mermaid ride attraction at Disney. That was a super cool project.
And why?
Aspects of, the animatronics and everything. Well, coincidentally, there was a couple successes to it. Number one, it's just a super cool ride, and everybody loves it. But to me, the other important aspect is Disney was very embedded in the philosophy of design, bid, build, and very old school, entrenched in that methodology. And then some more progressives within the organization decided to make this Disney project their very first IPD project, and it was strongly opposed as a project delivery system for a number of reasons. One of them had an incentive program for subcontractor performance that a small pool of subs would actually share if certain metrics were met in terms of change orders and so on. So that typically subcontractors aren't treated to that, and but that project ended up. I saw that project very carefully myself as an executive, kind of overseeing it. The Disney team was great. Our team was fantastic. The other subs were great, and it turned out that the project was so successful. I was happy for Disney because they proved out this methodology and decided that, from here on in, these major, super intricate projects were going to be done in an integrated project delivery fashion, and it's good for everybody. I love that delivery system. I think
so. You said it. So I guess the answer is yes. When I ask you, did you get a bonus? Did you share in some of the savings?
We did. It was terrific to actually, have this at the end. Now, it's a tough project to get into. I think most Disney projects have that want factor, that the contractors want the job so bad that you tend to get a little overzealous on the way in, and there's a lot of scrutiny. But the IPD allowed for the budget development to happen from really early conceptual drawings through to, it was almost locked down into kind of a FGMP, if you will, final hard number. But from top to bottom, it was a very cool project that I'm proud of having associated with.
So I got to ask you the opposite question. What was the toughest, nastiest project you've ever been associated with, and why?
I don't know if I can talk about that one, but I'd say probably one of the toughest jobs. And there's a lot of tough jobs out there. I mean, when you talk big healthcare jobs and so on, one of them, it's just on a personal level. I did a job years and years ago, and it was the first project that we had ever done this new plaster system on. It was that Le Decor limestone plaster, which I think has become Thermochromex. Anyways, so what a great way to start off. Do a 4-story, very complicated design, build, exterior frame job with tons of movement with this brittle plaster system on it. So the contractor was tough. They were kind of mean-spirited, and I wasn't at the top of my game yet, and it was a tough one for me personally to see the financial results not come through and not also impress the client. No, the harder I worked for the client, the more they just didn't care for me, and it was just on a personal level. It was a tough job, and if there was a phase 2, I probably would have tapped out. But
Steve, it's good for people to know, you've done super well in the industry. You've been with great companies. You got a great position now, but not every job is great, right? Did you learn a lot through that mess?
Oh, absolutely.
There you
absolutely.
go.
Not the least of which is, ask for help early and often, and never try to make something look better than it is. When you're in trouble, it's better to talk about how bad it's bleeding up front and then try to, make excuses at the end. So, it's part of the learning curve.
Well, Steve, you just hit on a big one, because when you talk about work in process, right?
Yep.
And you as a project manager are responsible for projecting costs to complete, which gives you your cost at completion projected. And I see some people really serious about it, and it's a fact-based thing. Now, it can change, but they base it on facts because they know the job, they know the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Some people throw it together at the end, and what's our budget? Okay, we got this much left to spend. That's what we're going to spend. And they live with it until, then like you said, it can get ugly. So, if you're a project manager, the message here is be honest with yourself. You don't want to be too ultra conservative, because that's going the wrong way the other way. Mm-hmm. As we close here, I got to ask you about the future of the industry. Again, from a perspective of a project manager, if you can keep that out for a minute, but what trends do you see? Obviously technology, but what trends, if you could name 1, 2, or 3, that you think will change the business between now and, let's say, 2025?
Yeah, I think, the demographics are changing in our world right now, so much so that probably one of the greatest things I see is, the stick-built versus modular construction. I think modular construction and prefab and so on is going to be the real game changer. And, everyone has to ultimately start to get on board with that sea change that's coming. That's one of the big things I see, Dave.
What about manpower?
Manpower is going to become a problem as we go. Again, demographically, I've sat through some seminars and they talk about say goodbye to Bob, and it's all guys my age and above that are leaving. And there's this gap, between guys my age and guys that are 25 and 30. So we have a huge problem in terms of just having enough manpower. It's not the most attractive business for people to get into. As more and more technology and the new green technologies are going to come out, it's going to be a lot more attractive to people. So we're going to have to find ways to attract people to the industry, retain them, train and retain them, and then we're going to have to deal with ways to have better productivity and better means and methods to reduce the amount of hard labor involved. It's not acceptable. And just the way gypsum plaster in the houses and so on, people were the firm believers that thought it would never change. They're out of business. The ones that got on board with gypsum board coming on and metal stud framing and the world changing are now still successful. Certainly, the people is going to be a problem, and the only solution really is some automation and modular construction.
What about robotics?
I've read several things and seen several things on robotics that are mind blowing. How fast that's moving. I've seen these robotic little drywall machines that can screw on sheetrock, and it's hard to fathom in a way that it's gonna happen. But when you look at how fast everything else has happened in our industry, we wonder just how soon. I think people can be easily replaced with the right affordable technology, and that's just going to be a fact of the way things are done. There won't be 1,000 people on a major project in the future. There'll be maybe 100.
So in episode 1 of season 2, we interviewed Brian Tremell, who was the vice president of public relations for the AGC. And what an awesome guy. If you get a chance, listen to that one. And I'll say this because at the end, he talks about robotics and some major things that they see in the future. But he also said that he thinks that the design of buildings is going to be less custom and more of something that can be repeatable, because it lends itself to, as you said, modular construction and robotics. It helps with safety, quality control. Now, the architectural community doesn't want to hear that. So, Steve, I want to thank you again for being such a great guest and sharing your personal and business history with our audience. If nothing else, man, you've inspired me to become a project manager. And I think you've taught others, including owners, about the role and how important it is. I think it's one of the most important in our construction process, if you will. I know you'll be around for a long time, and I know you'll be part of the change in our industry that happens. The industry needs more people like you. I'm happy to be associated with you, and I want to thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Dave.
So, thank you for listening in, and until next time, stay safe and stay tuned. So if you have questions about starting, building, or selling your business, or anything in between, contact me 2 ways. Go to my website, adicorp.com. That's adicorp.com. That's my last name spelled backwards. Or visit me on LinkedIn. Go to David Procida and leave your messages there. Visit us on our YouTube channel at Elevate the Industry. Check us out on Instagram at Elevate Industry. Subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Either way, we'll talk next week, and between now and then, stay safe and stay tuned. All the music for the episodes, including our theme song Elevate, was provided by DMV producer Trey Skills. If you like what you heard, follow Trey Skills on Instagram at Trey Skills, TreySkillz. That's TreySkillz. Elevate.